Stand by. Is this thing on?
Yes, Dan.
Oh, hello.
You're listening to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
This just in.
Breaking news to report.
We are live.
Old newscasters
Can we just say former?
Sure. Former newscasters reunite behind the mic after more than 20 years.
Old news is good news.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to Old News with Dan and Carrie, and today's guest is somebody that many of you have probably seen on TV many, many times over the years if you live in the Madison, Wisconsin area. Pam Tauscher Coshun. No, it's Pam Tauscher Coshun, right? I got to get that right.
Yeah, I'm a collector of names.
I'm going to keep that in. I could cut it and start over, but I'm going to keep that in because
no.
Pam obviously wears a lot of names, and she also wears a lot of hats when it comes to the things she's involved in. She's the host of Families Every Day. She's a freelance writer for broadcasting and other things. She used to do Moms Every Day. She was an executive producer for that. I remember watching that a little bit. And you've also done development. You've done some PR. And the thing we all know you best from is when you worked in the news business at WMTV in Madison, Wisconsin. I think for about a dozen years, you were one of the anchors at WMTV, NBC 15. Pam Tauscher Coshun, It's great to see you.
Thanks. Great to see you guys.
Great to have you here. Sorry,
Thank
I don't
you.
have my background today. Normally, my background looks something like Dan's, but mine's missing. Mine's virtual and it's missing. So you get the real deal behind me.
It's mad at you.
It's all good. We know you're a real person.
That's
Right.
right. With the
Right.
things on my walls.
Real house. Yeah.
And I
So
like
the
all
one-
the things in your real house back there.
Thank
I
you.
see
Yeah.
W.
Yeah. We're down here in the basement. So
Wisconsin.
yeah.
I know Carrie has been doing a lot of TV and some other video things, and so have you. You still kind of keep your foot in the water. Tell us about that, Pam.
Yeah. I'm not even sure I did it on purpose. It's just sort of ended up that way. I think partly for me, because it's just, I like it and it's easy. So it's hard to walk away from because it's just kind of ingrained in my psyche these days. So I still work for Channel 15 and I do a project now that's morphed into Families Every Day. It used to be called Moms Every Day.
Right.
It's just kind of morphed over the years as the company has changed. It started from our parent company, Gray Broadcasting, who that owns 50 some stations across the country. And they produced this project that they offered to their stations to sell. So it was a show. It was called Moms Every Day. And we had a staff of people that worked on it from all over the country. And we just put together a weekly program called Moms Every Day. And it was lovely. We loved it. We did it for about 3 years. And then you know how these things go in syndication. It didn't survive after 3 years. But here locally, they decided they would keep the Moms Every Day going. And then we morphed it into Families Every Day to be a little broader. And so now I'm still doing that. So it's fun.
Nice.
Yeah, love it.
And that
So
must
you've
be
been,
fun.
has that
Yeah.
been 10 years?
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Insane. I know, because it just started out, as let's see how this goes.
Uh-huh.
And, it turned out to be it's client based. So it's a project we do for clients. But it's a very popular format right now in advertising to have someone interview you about your product to make you stand out and show your expertise. And so I know how to interview people. So
Yeah.
it was a no-brainer to make it work. So I think it really took off.
So tell everybody where you learned how to interview people. How did that all get started, Pam?
Trial and error. Yeah, I wanted to avoid math in college, so I took
Like all of
all
us.
English. Yeah, I took English and lit classes, and I discovered that I loved writing. I wrote for my high school newspaper, so I thought I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. And long about my junior year when it came internship time. I applied to a newspaper for an internship, and I had to take a spelling test, and I failed. And so I changed my major the next day to broadcasting.
You're like, what if I say the words instead of spell them?
Because, in broadcasting, you sound them out.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of backed my way in, but I'm a talker. It came easy to me, and I'm just naturally curious and sort of naturally cynical too, which comes along handy when you're, a
Yep.
journalist. So um, I don't know. I just think it kind of grew out of those funny little decisions you make in life, and it fit. So.
Mhm. And
And
where
where
did
did
you
you
grow
grow
up,
up?
Pam?
Oh, hey,
So
good question, Carrie.
I'll tell
Good
you
idea,
both.
Dan.
Thank you for asking. So I grew up in
You're welcome.
Kansas, in southern Kansas. I also lived in Oklahoma for a while. We moved around a bit. And then I went to college in Topeka, Kansas, and got my first job in Texas. From there, I went to Louisiana, and from Louisiana, I moved here. So I have been here
I
since
can't believe you
1990.
were in so many places. I saw a promo on YouTube of you in 1997.
She can bring home the bacon and fry it in the pan. And that voice.
Hello, Kramer.
She's got really nice hair.
Oh, it's incredible. She's a dreamboat.
Pa. Pa. Pa.
You look like you walked out of the middle school speech class. Like you look so young, and I'm sure people would say that about all of us, but I was like, oh my gosh. And to hear
Yeah, I
that's
know.
like your fourth station or third station.
Well, thank you for saying that. But it was, how it is. You get out of college and you apply for these jobs. And I think my very first job was doing morning cut-ins in
Mm-hmm.
Topeka. And I look back on those too, and the whole deer in the headlights look, and you look like a 12-year-old on
Yep.
TV. But
Yep.
that's just how the business is. It's still that way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these young people get out of college and get their first job, and they are young. You can't hide
Yes.
it. I once had a
Right.
news director tell me that if I started smoking, my voice would get lower. And
Oh my
that was when I was probably,
gosh.
25 years old. I didn't take him up on it,
I
but
was going to say, is that working for you?
Good
Hey,
thing. Yeah.
the age I am now, I for sure would
Yeah.
have a lower voice. But yeah, the things,
Like, and on families first today. Family.
let me tell you what I think. So
got a good
yeah,
idea for you.
yeah. Anyway,
So my first, I'm going to talk about myself.
dude,
My first live shot on TV. Carrie knows this. It was one of these things I was doing it on set, and I had to do a turn to the camera like this, and I turned, couldn't find the prompter, and this is what happened.
no,
The words didn't come out. It was just
that's
like I
so
could not find the
bad.
words. Yeah, it
That's
was
so
bad.
bad. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the problem with this business is all your mistakes are out there, warts and all, for the world to see. So
yeah.
I'm sure it felt much worse than it was for the people at home because it's probably like 1 second long, but
No, that's what I
still
like to tell myself. But when
in
the
your
executive
brain,
producer looks at you and goes, "That was
what was
interesting."
that?
So
We're like,
where
oh
in
shoot, it
Texas
was outside my head.
did you go? Where were you down in Texas
Oh,
working?
dude, I lived in Del Rio, Texas.
Del Rio,
It's on the
Texas.
Mexico border.
What market is
Ooh.
that? Is that like
Oh, it's not even. I worked in radio there.
Oh, it's radio.
It's not even. It's not even a TV market. It's
Oh.
past San Antonio. It's in
Okay.
no person land. And then from there, I went to Shreveport,
Yep.
Louisiana. Um,
Was that TV
and
there
then
or were you in?
that was TV there. And
Yep.
then I was in TV ever since. I kind of went in and said, "Look, I'll mop your floors. I'll do whatever. I just need to work inside this building." So once you're in the building.
Yeah.
They can't resist your southern charms. There's all right, you can be a reporter.
How
Yeah.
long were you in Del Rio? About 2 months?
A year,
A year?
one
Oh,
year.
wow. You actually
Yep.
stayed longer than
Almost
most
to the
people would
date.
stay.
Yeah.
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 So were you
Yeah.
then sending out your tapes? Were you
Oh
on the
yeah.
phone calling
Tape.
newsrooms?
Yes. Back in the day, you had to like mail those big old tapes every time you applied for a
Mm-hmm.
job. Thank God postage was less. Yeah, yeah. But I was there for 4 years. So, that's where I really learned the ropes of being a true reporter, a true TV reporter. Learn to do live shots, learn
Yeah.
to be, be under the gun on deadlines and do that deathly race down the hall with your tape. We're gonna make our slot. Don't go. Keep talking. Oh yeah.
Did you anchor at all in Shreveport?
I did. I filled in some, a limited amount, enough to make a tape. I'd
Right.
always volunteer for holidays, or I'd always volunteer for weekend nights or whatever. You don't want to work Saturday night? I'll work Saturday night. So then enough to get a tape together. And then I started sending out tapes. I always wanted, so I grew up in Kansas, so I always thought I'd go back to Kansas City and just never got there, but alas. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Gives you
So
a place
then
to
your
go
next
visit.
step, yeah. And your next step then was Madison after that?
Yep, Madison, I thought it'd be just a stop on the way. I didn't know anybody here. I asked people in Shreveport, I'm like, does anybody know anyone in Wisconsin? Has anyone ever been to Wisconsin? And I got here and I learned quickly how to say it right. But
Yeah, really.
yeah, so
Did you come here as a reporter or as an anchor?
no, I came as the weekend anchor. So I reported during the week and then I anchored Saturday and Sunday. So it was a step up for me from just being a general assignments reporter in Shreveport. So
Yeah. And that was
I
1990, you said?
that was 90, yeah.
90.
So
Yeah.
it's been a minute.
WMTV, the place to be. Coming to you. Ooh, we got the hits for you. News, sports, and weather. Our team is there for you. News Scene 15. Whoa. This is the place to be. WMTV, the place to be.
Was it a learning curve coming to Madison? Were there things that surprised you in
Oh,
Madison
yeah.
and being in Wisconsin?
Oh, for sure. Well, so my first weekend here was well, the first weekend I was here, I can't remember, it was either paddle and portage, where you paddle the canoes across one lake and then you portage them on your head over to the other side. So I was downtown. I'm like, what is this town I moved to? What are these people doing? And then they had one of the marches downtown where people wear limited amounts of clothing. That also was happening shortly after I moved here. So anyway,
Now they do that on bikes.
And then I was going to say, and then you saw the limited clothing on bicycles, and then you're
yes,
like, wow.
I think that may have been the one. I'm like, oh my gosh, where have I moved? And then, and there was
There's
a
nothing
huge
worse than seeing a naked person on a bike. I'm sorry.
Tell me about it. You can't unsee that.
No,
It's
you
like
can't.
sticks with you. Yeah, and then I think learning curve wise, just changing parts of the country, and I'd lived in the South for a long time, so I had a pretty strong accent. I had to kind of work on that. Edit out the y'alls and the we're fixing to do this and that, and try to become a Midwesterner more. But I mean, it's a welcoming town. I mean, that's why we're still here. I fell in love with it. You drink the Kool-Aid, you stay. I had my kids here, so
Did
yeah.
you have to
Well-
work with anyone diligently to undo the accent, or did you just do it on your own? Nobody told you you had to get rid of it.
No one told me I had to, but I knew. People commented all the time. They'd say, "Where are you from?" And I would say, "Why? How do you know? Like, what am I saying that you get?" But it's lots of little things. Democrats instead of Democrats. So to me, I can still not hardly hear it. Like your writing utensil is not a pen; it's a pen. So
Yeah.
it's still hard for me to hear a difference in those. But when I would say I'm on the air, Democrat is not how people here say Democrats. They say Democrats. So I had to really think about some of that stuff. Or, we emphasize different words down south, like insurance and
Umbrella.
theater, umbrella.
Do you say July or
Thanksgiving.
July, pecans.
Oh yeah.
So you don't realize how many weird things you're saying. Oh, and I also mispronounced tons of things. I said Stoughton instead of Stoughton.
Oh,
Just all sorts of mistakes.
Akanamawak.
Akanowak, yes. But everybody has that. I mean, but again,
Right.
Yeah.
it's you're going through those growing pains, right in front of everybody. So what do? You're gonna
Yes.
do over, unfortunately. But you
Well,
guys
Right.
do they say soda or pop down in Kansas City?
pop.
Pop. Okay.
A
Yeah.
lot of people say pop.
Yeah.
Or
That's what I
for
thought.
sure, they don't say either. In a lot of places, they call everything Coke.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
we're gonna go get a Coke, and that means a Mountain
Hmm.
Dew.
Right.
That
That's a
Of
means
Sprite.
course.
Yeah.
that's a
Of course.
Sprite. So
Right.
like they'll say, "Do you need a Coke?" Yeah, I'll have Mountain Dew. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I don't know. It's a Southern
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
When did you move from weekends to then the main anchor slot there at NBC
Mm,
15?
it wasn't very long, honestly. It was within a year.
That's what I thought. It was
Mm.
pretty quick. Yeah.
It was pretty quick. Yeah.
Did
I
That
you
don't.
must have
go
been
right to five,
exciting.
6, and 10?
Yeah. It was exciting. I feel like it wasn't probably, I wasn't very seasoned. I'll say that much. When I look back, I'm think, oh man, you guys, what were you thinking? But of course I was excited. I was elated that they wanted to do it that way, but I wasn't very seasoned. I'd only had maybe a year under my belt. So I was working with Rick Featherston.
Rick.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys remember him. He
Oh
was
yeah.
just a consummate professional. He was so
Mm.
supportive. I don't know if I'd have survived anybody else because he would be just so patient, with mistakes and all the learning curve that you have when you're just first starting out anchoring and don't, you get flustered or you get the giggles, whatever.
Hmm.
He was just
Yeah.
so helpful.
Was he your biggest mentor at
Oh,
that time
for
in Madison?
sure. For
Hmm.
sure. Like he just was so steady and just rock solid, nothing flustered. He was unflappable. He was just a great role model. So, and then of course he left.
Yeah, he wasn't
He
there
went to
much
American
longer then.
Family. No,
Right.
he wasn't. He was there maybe,
Oh,
I
uh,
mean,
what were some of the most memorable stories that you still, remember, or maybe they haunt you, or that you're fond of? What has stuck in your mind all these years later?
so I still remember I don't remember what year it was. Do you guys remember the giant butter fire over on the east side?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do
What
The
was
not.
that?
warehouse, the warehouse,
CCW or
yes,
something?
the warehouse
Cold.
that housed all the
Yeah.
government cheese and butter
On
caught
Oh,
on
Cottage Grove
fire.
Road.
wow.
Yeah.
It was a huge grease fire. And for
Oh,
days and days, all the fire equipment, hoses and stuff were coated in grease and butter. And they couldn't clean them. No one had ever known they couldn't clean them and it smelled terrible. It was just, I don't know why that fire sticks in my mind, but it just was so unique and unusual. For days and days, we
yeah.
had live shots from this
That
cheese
was a
fire.
big deal. Yeah.
It was a huge
That's
deal.
crazy.
But, I like to remember those kind of stories because so many of the stories are just so hard and
Hmm.
gut-wrenching to tell. And so, while I remember them, all, it's like I don't like to think they're my highlights. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like everybody, because the news is the nature of the beast is it's not happy most of the time.
Hmm.
So, all the heartbreaking stories, I still remember a lot of them, but I like to think of them not as highlights, more of like just how you drive down the highway when you're in news. You just hit
Hmm.
speed bump as you go and try not to try not to focus on the really horrific things. So, yeah.
That's a good analogy because that's the name of my autobiography is going to be My Life Riding Shotgun because
Hmm.
when
Perfect.
you're working in the news business, you're riding in the shotgun seat all the time because the photographer would be driving,
Go
right?
on.
So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's all of the other stuff you're doing while you're driving shotgun, right?
You just have to, you look at them and go, what are we doing? What just happened? What was that? Or you roll up to I've covered plane crashes and car accidents, and you
Yeah.
just never know what you're going to see. And then, like you talk about not being able to unsee things, you know,
Hmm.
those are those, and you're young, you don't know, you go strolling up there because you're going to cover this story, and then you see some things. So it's an interesting business for that reason,
Yeah,
but you
right.
know.
Right.
Do you think there's more of a focus on the mental health of reporters today now that the whole world is talking more about mental health? Like that was never a topic in the
Yeah, I
newsroom, like
wonder.
taking care of ourselves. But have you
Right?
seen that evolved
I
at all?
wonder. You know what? I don't know, but that's a great
Mm,
question because when I think back to my own young self, strolling up and seeing, dead bodies and victims of crimes, and or just hearing the details of crimes, or reading like I remember reading the uh, unredacted court records of criminals. Like you can't unread stuff that has been done to
hmm.
people or that they suffered through. Or I think that's what kept me awake at night more, was like knowing the stories behind how, or what, as the police were putting together their evidence or what was going into court records. When you read every bit of that, it stays in your brain. Like those people
Hmm.
actually suffered through those moments or whatever. Yeah, there was one bit of mental health for back in the
No.
day. I mean, I would hope so. I know most companies now have in their HR arsenal, they have a place you can turn for help, like an
Hmm.
EAP type of service where you can ask for, you know, counseling of all kinds, like drug and alcohol counseling, which probably a lot
Right.
of us could have used back in the
Right.
day too. But
That
I
was the
mean,
counseling, right? People
that
would go to
was the
bars.
Yeah.
counseling.
Yeah.
Yeah. How quick can you get to babes?
Yep.
Hmm.
Right. Right.
But
Not a good
True.
way to
um,
solve your problems. Yeah.
yeah, no, not really. But so yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question.
What kind of ended up driving you to leave the news business, Pam? Or
Um, I think, well, for me, it was undoubtedly that I had a family, and that the love of the business just didn't outweigh my need to be at home with my kids during. I tried different shifts. I tried a lot of different things, and I don't know, I just think I outgrew it, honestly. I
Mhm.
think part of it was I didn't really ever think I was going to have children. And then the older I got, the more I thought, well, gosh, you're really not going to go through life and never have kids. I no, I'm not. Just wasn't going to. So I did wind up having children late in my life. And so, there, I had lived through the news business a lot longer than a lot of young moms who can find the way to juggle it all. I mean, kudos to them for figuring out how to work till 11 o'clock at night and have kids at home, because there ain't very many babysitters who are going to stay at your house till 11 o'clock at night.
Mm.
It was just very life changing to have the the life I used to love, not having to go into work till 2 in the afternoon and stay up till 3 in the morning. Well, then you have kids and it just turns everything upside down. And I think it just colored the whole business for me. Every news story on child abuse changes you. Everything, every time a child's injured in a car accident, it changes you. I felt like I was going to weep on the air sometimes with stuff,
Hmm.
Sure.
that I used to be able to get through more easily. I worked for a while in one shift, and I changed
Hmm.
shifts, and I went to a different station, went to Channel 3 for a while. And while I was there, it was that second round where I thought, okay, maybe I can make this work. Literally, I called the news director to come over, and I said, come to my house. You have to come over and talk to me because I'm gonna quit like today. If you have to come over. And so he came over, God bless Tom Beer. He came over and sat on my deck in the backyard, and we had a glass of iced tea. And I just said, I feel really responsible to hold up my end of the bargain. I told you guys I'd come and work for you, and I really want to, but I'm not going to do it. I have to stay home with these kids, or I'm never going to forget. I'm missing their growing up.
Mm.
We were ships in the night. By then they were in grade school. And so I would go to work right when they were getting out of school. And then there was a babysitter at our house and I would see them at bedtime and then their day is over, you know? So you
Yeah.
know this. I mean, you know how it is. Life just changed. Your life changes. So,
Yes. Yes.
it was, I, I probably, they were probably second grade. My oldest was probably a second grader and the baby was probably a kindergartner when I finally said,
Mm.
I'm just gonna walk away from this. So,
Hmm.
yeah. And
Well,
it's so hard because women, I've read somewhere where women who stay home with their kids, and I don't regret it at all, but I do know that you give up so much in your professional life by staying home with the kids. I don't regret it one bit, but you lose out a lot on 401k investments and not only that, but your advancing your career has a big hole in your resume. And it's people don't want to hear that you raised kids when you apply for the next job. You don't get very much credit for staying home with your kids. Like that's not you don't get the job because you did that. You get a no a lot of the time because you stayed home with the kids. So,
Hmm.
you just have to go into it with your eyes wide open. Like you only get to raise them once. So I
Right.
don't regret it. But bouncing back after that is not very easy,
Yeah,
honestly.
you have to just decide, is this your priority or not?
Yes.
And then the chips will fall where they may.
That's exactly right. And the
Hmm.
chips falling where they may feels different when you're on the other side and they're more grown up and they don't need you as much. And you're like, well, I want to go back in the workforce. Well, guess what? The workforce really doesn't care very much to have you back.
When you did decide to go back into the workforce, where did you look first?
I looked lots of places. I looked in marketing, PR, all the classic places where people from
Hmm.
TV generally land. And
Hmm.
I had lots of second interviews. I had lots of oh, you're really close, but you're not the one we're going to hire.
Mm.
I applied all over. We thought we'd move to Milwaukee because my husband works in Milwaukee so much. Well, I've tried at Freighted and places like that and UW Hospital here and just nothing ever came through.
Mm.
So, I mean, that's when I went back to Channel 15 and started doing the Moms Everyday stuff.
Oh.
well,
So,
and you
I
mentioned it too. You had the added complication, like as you're raising your family. You mentioned you can't. It's hard to find a babysitter for 11 o'clock at night or 11:30 at night. And your added complication was that you were also married to a broadcaster.
so
Correct me,
this is
Hmm.
Sean.
true. Yeah.
So that
It was not
also, you
wasn't
guys,
home
your
very much.
schedules, yeah, must have been crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so that's true. Yes. So because he was gone a lot. So
Right.
he was not only not home, he was not coming home. He was away out of town a lot. So it was very unique in that way. Like so
Hmm.
many people
Hmm.
do have the support of a spouse who you can shift your schedules. Like the
Right.
one spouse has the day shift and the other spouse has the night shift. So that worked for us sometimes, but it didn't work for us
Hmm.
all the time, which was the problem because the kids aren't
Right.
all the time problems. So they can't just watch themselves
We know
on
what you mean.
occasion. Right, you guys can just hang here and
Been
I'll be
there.
home around 11.
Yeah.
But yeah, blah. But yeah,
Here's some TV dinners. Pop them in the microwave. Yeah.
exactly.
Or
Pour
back then it was
yourself
the
some
oven. I don't even know if we had
Cheerios.
microwaves. Boy, I'm really getting old. Um,
Yeah.
So as
well,
you're
Oh
raising
my
the kids,
gosh.
then is that where the idea came from for the Mom's Everyday Show?
So it wasn't my idea, but I certainly felt like I had the chops to handle that,
Heck
like
yeah.
all those years of doing health reporting and I was doing all
Yeah.
these parenting stories. I wasn't a parent. I wasn't, most of the time I was doing those. I guess after I had kids a few, but yes, it was for sure the impetus for it and all of those unspoken problems that don't get covered on TV very much. Like for both
Hmm.
dads and moms, it was really a fun project to do. So I loved it. Yeah.
And when did that morph into Families Every Day then? Did you mention like how many years was it
Well,
moms and then
so,
became families?
oh gosh, it was probably about 5 or 6 years that we did the Moms Project. I think the show, that half-hour show, only was only about 3 years, probably.
Okay.
And then, but the whole time that was going on, we kept the local Moms Project and Families Project was going on
Okay.
Mm.
during all of that. So it's, it's kind of, it went the Moms Every Day here in Madison, and then they did the Moms Every Day show. I'd already started the Moms Every Day Madison, and then the show went away, and then we continued with the Families Every Day in Madison after the show went away. So it's
Yeah.
been more
Are
than
you,
10 years.
yeah. And you're still hosting the Families Every Day?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And are you also an executive producer on that?
So yeah, I mean, it's just me. You know how these
It's
things
just
are.
you.
No one else.
She's everything.
Yeah,
You,
just
you
do it
are
all.
everything.
I mean, it's the magic of TV. It's really not.
Mm.
It's not nearly as complicated as you might think. It's
Well,
just
what does it entail? So, I mean, like you're
oh
like, okay, I've got this idea, and then
yeah.
you show
So
up on site, or
no,
walk us
no.
through.
So it's full disclosure. It's a sales initiative, and
Right.
so
Marketing.
it's marketing. It runs for our
Yeah.
sales
Hmm.
department, and so it's client based. These are clients, and they're paying to have these done. So they want someone who can help position them. Uh, in a way they can tell their story. It's just like people who used to call the station all the time and go, why don't you tell stories that are happy? Why don't you tell stories about, you know, how to get whiter teeth? Something that could help people. That's like, so we have a dentist. They want to do something on how do you get whiter teeth? I'm your girl. I'll come and ask you, gee, Dr. April, how do you get whiter teeth? So it's, you know, it's exactly what we did as journalists, but it's
Hmm.
to the sales level of how do we help these people tell their stories in a way that's
Mm.
relevant and not salesy, um,
Yeah.
that truly does send a message out that's like actually halfway useful, not this
Right.
is our 12.99 special this week, which
Hmm.
blah. So
Hmm.
it's just a kind of that newer age way of advertising of soft selling or soft peddling and setting people up as the experts in their field. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, all I do is to go and talk to them and say, okay, what is it you're trying to tell people, you know?
Hmm.
And once they figure that out, we're golden and we just get her done.
But when did you start doing realty then? When did you start working at First Weather?
COVID.
It was during
COVID.
COVID. Good
I was
timing.
so
Oh.
bored. I was so bored during COVID. I was like, I need something else to do because my kids were in college by then. And I'm like, this is not going to work out well for me if I don't have some other hobby, something else to do. Um, so I talked to my friend who sells real estate, and she's like, oh, yeah, you'd be great. Let's do that. So I got my license and it's been, I'm not climbing the corporate ladder over here. I'm just kind
Yeah.
of staying in my lane. I'm not trying to be the best one person you've ever broke all the records, but I do love it. I love helping people find houses. I've lived in many houses, so I get it. I understand the whole moving.
Yeah, I would think your skills as a journalist would really come in handy as a realtor too. Being able to ask questions, answer
Totally.
the questions, get the information you need.
Yeah.
Have you found it translates well?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Because it's interviewing people. We need to
Hmm.
know what are you after? What do you really want? What's the deal breaker for you? Why do you think you want to move? What's going on? Are you having change in your life? You need something smaller? You need something bigger? So yeah. And then I think true, just being able to relate to people through something that's not always an easy process. So
Mm.
we're used to listening to people's stories. So,
Hmm.
tell me how you're doing. Tell me what's going on. What's dragging us down? Why can't we make a
Hmm.
decision? What's the trouble here? So that just goes back to those old interviewing skills of being tenacious and not taking the I don't know for an answer, saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, you do know." You
And
know
being a
why
good
you're not saying
listener.
yes. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, we're to the point of the show where I want to ask you my always question that I ask people.
Well, I hope I know the answer because I
Well, you
feel
will.
bad. I don't have a clue. Okay,
I
fine.
call it first. I call it first, worst, and thirst. So I want to know what your first job was, and it doesn't have to be in journalism, but what was your first job, and what do you remember about it?
My first job was I worked at a summer camp washing dishes. Yeah.
And did you like it?
Washing dishes all summer in 800-degree heat? No, I
Your
did not
hands
like
must
it.
have been very nice and soft, though.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
hot and
You had
humid.
dishpan hands.
We did. And you had to go in early because you had to start their lunch at like, 9 in the morning for 500 people or whatever. It was not. It taught me what I didn't want to do.
So
Yes.
does that qualify as your worst job too, ever?
Oh no. My worst job was working at a meat packing plant.
Oh, yuck.
Yes. I
Oh.
made really good money, but it was a horrible job.
Yeah,
What
what
did
was
you
the
have to
smell
do?
like?
It was awful. All of it. The smell, you're working in a freezer, so it was cold all day. And this is in Kansas. It was 800 degrees. It was a summer job. I filled in for union workers who were taking vacations. So I worked all over the plant in different places, except every place except the place they brought in live animals. I never
Oh, okay.
ever went down there. But I packed bacon. I sliced bunny. I deboned hams. I um I carried boxes of pork chops from one spot to a conveyor belt where they got wrapped up and put on a truck. And all was cold. It was cold. It's all in freezer. So you had to wear,
Oh.
shirt and like this big white jacket and gloves. Yeah. And I saw a
You're,
guy chop his finger off.
oh,
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
well, you're on my team after the apocalypse then. So since you know how
Yeah.
to do all
Oh, I
that,
I
yeah.
got you in the zombies. They aren't going to bother me
Awesome.
at all. We'll just
Awesome.
have
Good.
sharp knives.
I mean, are you the go-to person in the family? They're like, we got a debone a ham. Bring it,
I
Pam.
got you.
Pam, we
I can debone a ham
got a ham.
Gary, why don't you
in no
ask your
time flat.
question?
You just
Oh my
Gary, you
gosh.
ask your question, then I'll ask
All right.
the last piece of my
So,
question.
all right. Got it. Pam,
Yes.
bloopers. I love bloopers.
Um,
I love thinking back on bloopers. Are there bloopers
yeah.
on air
So
flubs
many
that you
things.
still like laugh about
So
or
many
cringe?
things. So for me, lots of things happened with like falling off of me. Earrings falling off, necklaces falling off, jewel pieces of jewelry bouncing across the set. Um,
Really?
that kind of thing. I don't think I have any video of those, but it happened more than you'd think. Like I don't know
Huh.
what I had going. Maybe I have tiny earlobes or something, but my earrings fell off a lot. This was,
Were they clip? Were
yes,
they
in the
clip and not
90s.
pierced?
In the 90s,
Oh,
we had to have
that's why.
huge hair and
Oh
huge
yeah.
earrings. Like my hair, girl, my hair was way bigger than yours. Way, way bigger than yours. Like sometimes I look at those pictures and I think, how did they even get us on the screen? Like with all that hair,
Well,
right?
that's my eighth grade story because the photographer in town, he was like laughing because it's like picture this
Oh,
here hair right here, but it was like out to here. And he
everywhere.
started laughing and he said, "You don't fit in the frame." I
See?
was like,
That's
"Oh, so it's like
I'm
my hair
sure
just expanded. I was just like one big square of hair."
massive hair. So, and then we did have one. My favorite blooper of all time is a story, uh, and it was when I was working with Rick Featherston, a story about a man who was smuggling cocaine under the flaps of fat on his belly. And when they
Oh
lifted up
gosh.
the flaps of fat, 8,000 pounds of cocaine fell out or whatever. So I could not read it. So Rick wrote it. I know he wrote it to make me laugh, and I had to read it. And I got to the line where I said, And when they lifted a flap of fat, I could not say that without I burst into laughter. Like, like wedding and funeral laughter when you can't laugh and it just
Oh,
is
yes.
going to come out.
Sorry, that just struck me funny. Well, think about the police laugh. Well, when they lifted a flap of fat, police say $30,000 worth of cocaine fell out.
Now that's an amazing story.
When you just can't stop.
Oh, yes.
It's really, and then you reach that point of no return where you can't rein it back. It's the horse is out of the barn. You can't bring it back in. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And
that's
what
my
did people
favorite
call
Hooper.
did people
That's
call
a
the
good one.
station?
Oh
Did
yeah.
people call?
Mostly though they were okay. It was
Right.
at least it wasn't a horrific story where we were laughing, but then we laughed through the whole rest of the show. We laughed through weather, we laughed through sports. Like I can remember we turned our backs to each other because I'm just like, stop. You can't look at me. And it was the whole show was lost after that.
Those
Yeah.
are the best moments.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They
I
are.
know. I
'Cause
love
you
those.
think you can talk. You'll be like, "Oh, I got this. I got this." And then you're like, "Ah!"
And
you
then it's
can't.
like it's
You
like
have
a
no
diaphragm
control.
spasm or something. It's like
a
the hiccups.
sneeze.
You just
Yes,
can't. You
you
can't get
can't.
rid of it.
Yeah. So fun. It's fun to live through that. And no, we did get calls, but mostly people were
Laughing with you.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a
Thank
good way
God
for
I
them to get laughing too. Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't have to. I mean, I don't know if you guys, we didn't have any email for most of the time I was doing.
Towards the
No
end,
one
yeah.
was or no social media. So I'm so fortunate that I did not have to go through any of that.
Yeah.
Agree.
A lot of work with
Agree.
that.
Yeah.
So finally,
Okay.
as part of my first worst, what do you still want to do? What are you still thirsting to do, Pam?
Oh, I'd love to write a novel.
Mm.
Any
I think I
specific
could.
topic?
No, probably a rom-com. I don't have any specific topic. I just feel like I love to write, and that's what got me into the business more than the being on TV. I liked the writing part of it, the creativity part of it.
Yeah.
The on TV part was never ever my favorite part of it. It was kind of what you carried along in the backpack of the job that you had to do. I did not love the makeup and the hair and all the big hairdo stuff, but that just, you couldn't do it without it. So, and I couldn't spell, so I couldn't work for the newspaper.
Couldn't do the
So
graphics, right?
I couldn't do the graphics. I'm not that creative. So yeah. The writing was what I loved the most about it, and the telling of the stories and the people whose lives are so amazing, people doing such amazing things, and they're just like going along doing their little thing and like it's no big deal, and it's like this amazing thing. So that's what I love the most, is finding those people who are just like going along their life doing like these crazy mind-blowing things, and then you get to tell their story, right? That was my favorite thing. So maybe I find someone like that and write a novel about them.
I was going to say,
like
do you
it.
have any ideas for your novel? I mean, have you
I
got
mean,
any
gosh.
notes on this that you've
No, I
started?
don't. I better start though. I'm not getting any younger. I've got a bad memory, obviously.
I
No.
do too. I'm
There's
right
always
there with
time
you.
to write a novel. Always time to write a novel. You
Yes.
write that novel, make it a
Okay,
rom-com,
Dan.
sell it to
Yes.
Hallmark, and Carrie and I are going to
Okay.
be in
And
the
we'll be in it.
background. We're going to be background
Yeah, you
actors.
could
That's
be in
our
it.
life's
So
goal.
see, I love that you want to be the actors,
Yes.
because I would never ever go and be I could never be in a performance. Like
Oh,
that's
we
like
don't want to be
my
up front though. We want to be like sipping
We'll
coffee
be
in the
we'll be
background.
the news anchors. No, they'll be like, we'll just be delivering the news, like,
I'm gonna
and then
think of
the
you.
main characters are like, what's on TV? And then we deliver something, and then they turn back and go back to their rom-com.
That's perfect.
We've got it out.
It'll have a news element to it, and these
Yes.
There
people
you
have a
go.
recurring part where they come back
you
in
go.
Yes.
to update the story. You'll be the omniscient narrators.
Oh, I like
There we
it.
go.
Good.
Got it all
Thank you.
worked out.
All right,
Oh,
get on that now. We're going to start working on that.
Yeah.
Pam, it's been great talking to you. Thanks
Oh
so
my
much for
gosh.
taking time to
Yes.
be here
Well,
with us today
you're
on Old
most
News.
welcome.
And we will look
That
forward to
was
that
so much
update
fun.
on that thing you might regret. So that'll be our next episode, okay?
No regrets.
That's
I guess
perfect.
that'll be on my tombstone. She had no regrets.
That's
love it.
right. I like it. I like
And
it.
hopefully you've had no regrets about listening to Old News with Dan and Carrie and Pam today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
That's old news for now.
Join us next time.